With the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War, the islands were immediately implicated. The commander in North America after the Battle of Bunker Hill was Sir William Howe. Howe was the son of a former governor of Barbados, and he immediately sent officers down to Barbados to request provisions and supplies, which was something the islands did not have. Indeed, they faced the possibility of starvation during the war because most of their food imports had come from North America. The outbreak of the war immediately affected the islands. For example, loyalist refugees started to appear. This portrait is perhaps one of the more glamorous of the loyalist refugees. This is a member of the Holland family, who were America's first family of theatre. And the theatre was banned by Congress. And so the Holland family brought the theatre to Jamaica during the war. The main evidence of the war was the appearance of American privateers that often operated out of French and Dutch ports and would intercept British shipping. One governor described these privateers as being like fleas. They're immensely effective. I've sometimes called them the militia of the seas. And as a result, the British had to start trying to convoy all of their trade. But nevertheless, there were massive losses owing to the presence of the privateers. Congress and some of the individual states also sent agents to the islands, especially the Dutch and French islands. This is the most prominent of them. He was called William Bingham, and Binghamton in New York is named after him. William Bingham was an agent for Congress who was based originally in Martinique, and his main objective was to try to cause a war between France and Britain. He also helped to organize the privateers on Martinique. There was even an American coffee house where all the captains would meet. And Bingham, as a result of his work with privateering, became, and is sometimes called, America's wealthiest man by the 1790s. And indeed, some of the incidents in the islands and the protection given to American shipping were part of the build-up towards the war with France. Obviously, once war with France broke out in the middle of 1778, the islands became a central part of the American Revolutionary War. The French were much more interested in capturing British islands than they were in assisting the American Revolution. Their main focus would be in the Caribbean. As a result, the British also had to change their priorities and to change the focus of the war. After 1778, Britain was sending more troops to the Caribbean than to North America. America receives fewer and fewer troops. The number of troops in North America was actually declining, and the naval support was declining. Sir Henry Clinton became the British commander-in-chief in the middle of the war, and one of his first orders was to release 5,000 of his best troops, what he called the very nerves of the army, and to give up Philadelphia, which the British had just acquired at great cost, in order to attack the French island of St. Lucia. And St. Lucia was regarded as important because it was the main gateway to Martinique, and the French Navy would be headquartered in Martinique. Clinton was always assured that he would get these troops back. He never did, and he lamented the fact to the end of the war. The Caribbean became the focal point of the naval war, which was going to be crucial in the outcome of the Revolutionary War. The headquarters of the British Navy was in Antigua, in English Harbour. English Harbour is a little like modern Williamsburg. It's a time capsule, and you can still see what an 18th century naval dockyard looked like. This is the Admiral's home. These are the capstans where they would tie up the ships, the wooden boats, and also careen them, which essentially meant turning them upside down and scraping the hulks. These are the quarters where sailors would live on land, and where they also stored masts and naval materials. With the entry of France, the French immediately dispatched their fleet to the Caribbean. The British switched to their tactics in North America to focusing on the war in the southern states, and part of the reason for this was that their army and navy would be closer to the Caribbean. The French Admiral d'Estaing became a feared name in the Caribbean. He joked that he would ensure that George III didn't have enough sugar for his tea by Christmas. And d'Estaing gradually started to take one island after another, beginning with Dominica. George III was so concerned about the safety of these islands, and it again gives you a sense of the importance of these islands, that he said, if we lose these sugar islands, we will not be able to continue to fight the war. He thought they were so economically important that without them, Britain would cease to be a major power. In the summer of 1779, it looked as though the French and Spanish were just about to attack Jamaica. And indeed, there was such concern that Lord Cornwallis was put on board ship with some 7,000 men in New York. He was out at sea for a week before word arrived back that Jamaica was safe. In other words, the British were willing to withdraw altogether for the defence of Jamaica. The British cabinet, in fact, debated whether to simply withdraw completely from America and focus on the Caribbean. They intended, of course, having defeated the French, to return to North America, but it gives you a sense of the importance of this area. They launched major initiatives from here, one of which involved the future British naval hero Nelson. It was an attempt to take Central America from Jamaica, and a great failure. But perhaps the most significant part these islands would play in the outcome of the Revolutionary War was this island that you see in the distance, and it was called San Eustatius. It was sometimes known as the Golden Rock. It was little more than a rock, but this island had some 500 warehouses along its shore, and it was one of the principal routes for gunpowder and for weaponry and supplies to North America. This is an artist's reconstruction showing the island fort giving the first foreign salute of the American flag in 1776, when an American-built naval ship, the Andrew Doria, arrived with a copy of the Declaration of Independence. The Dutch Fort Orange gave an official salute. The fortress is still there. There was a commemoration put up by the daughters of the American Revolution, as well as by Franklin Roosevelt when he visited the island, that this was indeed the first foreign salute of the flag. If you visit the coastline, you can see the remnants of some of the warehouses. It was said that you could find goods at the same prices and the same quality as in London and Paris. It's difficult, though, when you visit now to realize just how busy it was and how large the trading area was, because very little of it still exists, but it is being excavated. The British were so annoyed by the support given by the Dutch and by Eustatius especially to the American Revolution that in December of 1780, they declared war on Holland. They didn't, though, give warning to the Dutch as early as they sent warning to their own admiral and commander in the islands, who were ordered to attack Eustatius, which they did at the beginning of 1781. The admiral in charge was a man called Sir George Rodney, and he would spend some 5 months attacking and plundering the island. 5 months which were to prove crucial to the build-up to the British defeat at Yorktown. Because during those 5 months, while he was focused on plundering the island, the French Navy was to get through the islands and to blockade Lord Cornwallis at Yorktown. The invasion was very quick. Rodney not only defeated the small number of ships which were in the harbour, but actually killed the admiral, a man called Admiral Cruel. Initially, it was seen as a great victory. There were cartoons of the Dutchman in the dumps in the British press. But as Rodney started to plunder the island, it caused really a scandal in Britain. It was said that he was even selling some of the goods to the French and even to the Americans. He particularly mistreated the Jews on the island, who were some of the oldest, they had one of the oldest synagogues in the Americas by isolating them and treating them with a special vengeance. This is the house where he supposedly lived during this period, but it was a result of his being focused on that, played into the ability of the French Admiral de Grasse to go to Yorktown, and while he was going to Yorktown, Rodney, instead of following him, delegated the command of the British Navy, and Rodney returned to England, he said for health reasons, but his priority when he got to England was to meet with the King and to defend himself in Parliament. In other words, the naval war and the failure of the British fleet to defeat the French fleet played a critical role in the outcome of the American Revolution. It didn't help that this was the only war in the 18th century when the British Navy was really inferior to the size of the French Navy. But only months after Yorktown, the British were to change the equilibrium with the French. Admiral de Grasse, after Yorktown, was urged by Washington to stay in America and to attack the British in New York and their remaining outposts in places like Savannah. But he'd already exceeded his orders, which were to attack Jamaica. He left Yorktown. He attacked the island of St. Kitts while he awaited the Spanish fleet, which was going to join with him to enable him to attack Jamaica. But as he sailed through a group of islands known as by the British as the Saints in April of 1782, Rodney met him, but this time with a much larger British fleet. And Rodney succeeded in defeating the French Navy. It was the low point of the war. A lot of British cartoons were showing that the empire was being completely dismantled. Speakers in Parliament claimed that the government had reduced Britain to a second-rate power. This victory by Rodney really changed the balance for the British. It enabled them to negotiate much better terms in the Peace of Paris. It enabled them to withdraw from the war, keeping a token of respect. This cartoon depicts Rodney as St. George slaying the dragon. Even though he was under investigation for his behaviour at San Eustatius, he was turned into Britain's leading naval hero before Nelson. The cartoons and the press and even the opposition in Parliament celebrated the humiliation of the French. The cartoons at times vulgarly showing de Grasse having to relieve himself on the deck of a British battleship or having to bow and kneel to George III. In Jamaica, the only physical commemoration of the American Revolution is a celebration of Rodney and his victory at the Saints. It's at Spanish Town, and it is in some ways appropriate that the main physical remnant of the American Revolution should in fact be the celebration of a British victory, because these islands essentially had been loyalist during the American Revolution. This was one of the most costly public statues put up anywhere in the British colonies in the Americas. It was a statue designed by Francis Bacon and again commemorated British success during the American Revolution.